the Ryobi 10-inch table saw. Professional use, I've used it personally for 8 years, maybe a little longer than that, and I purchased this tool used. Overall features of the saw, on the left side there's a nice cord wrap, acts as a foot pad when the saw is vertical, and also there's a grab handle if you are going to lift it up. Grab the left and right side there, lift it up when it's in the collapsed position. Tires have held up great, no cracks or chips. Tires have never fallen off. They've been in great condition ever since I've used it. I think the saw is 10 to 15 years old. Not exactly sure how old it was when I bought it. I think 5 years, so maybe 12 or 13 years old. No damage to the frame or issues or failures. All these pivot joints work great. The frame is held up great. Very happy with how the saw has done these last many years. The dust collection bag is not that effective, especially outside. It collects maybe half the dust, maybe a little bit more when I'm inside cutting, inside of a garage. It does help mitigate the dust, but it's not that effective. I'd be curious to know, and if you do know how it works with a vacuum system, maybe post that in the comments below. For rough cuts, this tabletop tape measure is great. Say that 3 times fast. Tabletop tape measure, tabletop tape measure, tabletop tape measure. It's always within at least a 16th of an inch, if not a 32nd of an inch. It's pretty spot on. I do double check most time, especially when I'm doing finish work. I'll double check prior to ripping or cutting. Some tips and tricks: cut upwind. Cut with the wind to your back. That way the wind pushes the sawdust away from you. As well as when I'm cutting in a garage, I'll always aim the saw out if I'm in a customer's garage to mitigate dust control, and I'll usually put a fan behind me to push dust out even more. Also, lay out your work site ahead of time. I always have the same layout when I go to a customer's home, to a job site. I have my saws and my tools set up the same. That creates a better work environment, safer work environment, and more effective. You're going to get the job done faster and save money and make more money. On the left side here, this is looking from the back view, you can see the sliding table extension works well. The rip fence moves right over with that, and you can get several more inches out of a cut. I do double check for squareness with these cuts because it's not perfect. There is a bottom foot that's adjustable with a spring, so the spring helps it to automatically adjust, and then you can manually adjust that with screwing it in or out as well, just to help with uneven surfaces. All the other foot pads have had no issues. They have not fallen out or broken, and I have other stands that I have that are collapsible and rolling, and several times these foot pads will fall out and I end up gluing them back in, so these have held up very well. On the top right of the photo, you see near this blade cover, there's 2 Phillips screws that pops right off. You raise your blade up, unplug your saw, change your blade. Easy to do. The table has other features that I'm not going to discuss because I've not used them, but you can see some of them here. The table slides out. There's a couple other features you can use that I've never used. The rip fence can get out of square. This is normal for all table saws. This one's fairly loose. The saw is old and it's a Ryobi. I'm happy with it, especially for the price of the saw, but it does need readjusting over time. The overall structure, frame, and body of the saw have held up great. No chipping, no cracking, no fractures, no breaks. Very happy with the overall quality of the saw. I'm not a big Ryobi fan. I bought this because of the price and because of how compact it was. I'll cover that a little bit later, but I'm very impressed with this saw for a job site saw. I've used Ryobi, Rigid, Bosch, and Craftsman. Power switch, no failure issues with the power switch. I did have a Rigid saw in 2008 power switch fail on me. We ended up hot wiring it and just using an extension cord, but this one has had no issues or failures. My only thing I don't like about this is I wish it was on the left side, because when you're making long rips and your right hand is pushing that material through, you have to reach across with your left hand and turn it off when you are ripping long material. Shortcuts, no problem. You just rip your material, cut your material, and you can even use material. I just usually use the whatever I cut, my stock, and I hit the saw off. But with long rips, you do need to reach around and underneath to turn it off with your left hand. The bevel, as you can see as well to the left of that whole handle is the saw raise and lower and the bevel. It can be finicky to adjust. I've used it from 5 degrees to 45 degrees. It works well, but it can be finicky to get to that exact spot. It may have just been old, but there's a lever that is the unlock and lock feature of the bevel, and then there's a handle on front of that. You can see it circled here. It's the raise and lower function. This does not raise and lower as fast as some saws or as smoothly as some saws. It is a little slower than others, takes more revolutions to get it up or down. Alright, I like that there's a big table service and that when the saw is vertical it stores very easily. It's easy to strap into a truck or a trailer. I simply just place the strap right across that big table face, and when I store it I do remove the fence. Folds up nicely. I bought the saw originally because I had a Honda Civic and I was just doing some small jobs back in the day and it fit right in the trunk of my Honda Civic. So that's why I purchased this one. It rests vertically on this cord wrap foot pad / lifting handle and rests vertically on these wheels. And then there's an easy unlock lever. You push it to the left, push the handles down. I really like how this thing folds up. It's super easy. Never had any issues with anything getting jammed. The only thing that will prevent this is if your dust collection exhaust tube is bent at the wrong 90. That'll prevent it. You just got to turn that depending on which direction you have that flow in. No problems or issues with this ever breaking or having any slip-ups or coming undone accidentally. And then these two handles make great lifting handles. If I'm in the back of the truck, I'll push the saw up to the back of the truck. I'll grab those handles while in the bed and I'll just simply pull it up to myself. But great features, nothing's broken or damaged at all since I've had it on these, or had the saw. What have I cut with the saw? I've mainly cut hardwood floor, 3/4 inch. Maple, oak, hickory, pine. I've cut a lot of engineered wood, cut a lot of laminate and a lot of luxury vinyl plank floors. I've cut subfloor from 1/4 inch to 3/4. 4x8 sheets of plywood. I don't do a lot of ripping of these large sheets. It is dangerous on this smaller saw. The saw is very light and tips easy, so I try to do most of my cutting of that with my circular saw, but I've cut paneling, I've cut a lot of OSB. A lot of framing lumber from 2x4s to 2x12s, ripping them down or just making notch cuts and things like that. It can happen pretty quick if you have it handy. And I've cut a lot of stock, 3/4 inch pine, oak, and maple, up to 16 feet long, but I've cut a lot of 12-foot stock. I simply just use sawhorses with a piece of plywood as a catcher behind the saw, or I'll actually cut it right into the bed of my truck and allow that to help because the material is very long to cut on a saw that small. But it has cut it. Does the tool have the power? Yes, this tool has plenty of power with rips and cuts. I'm very impressed with it for the small size of the motor, but I do use a quality sharp blade. I'll be covering that later. Material over 1.5 inches thick or exotic hardwood. Take your time. This is not a 3-horsepower wood shop table saw with a dust collection system. You don't have the prime environment. You don't have a a 300, 400, 500 pound saw to cut on. You have a little job site saw. This review is about the Ryobi saw, not a $1,200 shop saw. So for the price I pay for the saw and what I've put it through, it does very well. It does have the power. Is it easy to use? Yes, very simple to use for the do-it-yourselfer, for the homeowner, for the professional. For every feature I've used, it's been very easy to use, easy to maintain, and simple to clean. I've only changed the blade. I've adjusted the foot pedal a few times, but I really haven't touched it much. And I've had to adjust the rip fence once or twice. That's a couple of screws when that thing gets a little loose. Respect and take care of your tool. It will take care of you. Keep all your gear in top shape at all times. That way you're going to save money at the job site and make more money on jobs. You're not going to waste time by taking care of your materials and your tools. Do not force materials through the saw. Saws are dangerous. Table saws are extremely dangerous. I've seen many guys lose fingers and get bad cuts because they were forcing material through when the Motor starts to bog down on a tool, you're doing something wrong or your blade is dull. And then don't let your tool slide around in a truck or trailer. People that don't maintain their tools, I do not want to work with them or near them. How you take care of your stuff says a lot about how you handle a job and handle a job site. Tie it down. I remove the fence and I store it separately when I store my saw. I don't want that saw, that rip fence just banging around. Cleaning, real simple. I use compressed air with my air nozzle. Or I've even started using a leaf blower at job sites after I sweep up. I leaf blow the hard surfaces at the homeowner's house or the job site. I leave it nice and clean. It works real well, but just blow the dust off of it. Wrap your cord. Store your saw. Easy. Would I buy the saw again? Absolutely, I would buy it again. I bought the saw for $150 in 2011. The quality has surprised me. Like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Ryobi, but this saw has impressed me. It's had no failures. For the professional daily use, I've used and abused this thing, and I've treated it very nicely while I've used and abused it. Great for the do-it-yourself or handyman. I purchase a good blade. I use quality blades on all my saws. Yes, buy the tool if you're looking at it. It's worth the buy. I've looked at the new ones. Not much has changed. How you can save some money. Home Depot matches military and veteran discounts, or has military and veteran discounts for 10%. And when Menards does their 11% sale, Home Depot matches it. Simply Google Home Depot 11%. If you buy during the time Menards has their 11% sale, which you can sign up for online and just get notifications, if you buy a $300 saw, you fill out the form online. In 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to get a gift card in the mail right to your address for 11% of whatever you purchased. It is a great way to save money and make money whenever you're purchasing things, especially large items. These are things in the store. So this is also great for a home saw because it stores nicely, it folds nicely, it's small footprint, takes up a little bit of space, so if you're going to want a saw to use around the house that you can store in your garage and then bring out to your patio, I prefer these over the ones with stands. This saw has certainly earned its money. Lastly, going to cover the blades I use. I use Diablo blades on all my saws since 2008. This particular one on this saw, on all my table saws, I've always used a 60-tooth 10-inch. This blade particularly costs $30 to $40. I get a nice tool locally. Home Depot, I've even seen them on Amazon. I always have 2 Diablo blades, and I usually carry a cheap 40 tooth with me in case there's a problem with my Diablo or I need to cut some junk material. I have 2 good blades per saw. One is being sharpened and the other is being used on the saw, then I have my backup. I get my saws resharpened just at my local supply house, and it costs about $23 for the 60 tooth. Nice and easy. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more review, tools, and trade videos.